Hi, everybody. It's Michael and June again with Solas Inspirational Chats. And this evening, we're delighted to have as our guest Andrew Smith, astrologer extraordinaire, who we know for a couple of years now. I also know his partner, Karen. And Andrew and Julie, Karen, and I met recently in Montsegur in France, where we all have a huge interest. So lovely to talk to you, Andrew.
Yes, great.
Thank you very much for asking me on tonight. Thank you.
Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself to the people who may not know who you are, but I assume anyone tuning in does, but for those viewers that haven't met you
Well, I don't know. I've been walking this a path which is the astrological path now since 1993. And it's been my full occupation. I've actually, believe it or not, never been employed in anything other than astrology. I knew it was my path from the moment that I actually picked up my first book in Waterstones in Dublin, and decided to commit myself to it. And funny, like most people, I struggled with studying when I was in school and university because it wasn't really the right thing for me, and discovered astrology, and I was studying 14, 15 hours a day, like literally obsessively. And anybody who would volunteer their birth details, which to be fair, most people do, and they're interested and intrigued because it's going to be about themselves. I would just be chatting away and just keen to get going with it. So it's been a full-time occupation now since 1995.
Oh, very good.
Um,
Yeah, and I think when somebody has a passion, the study comes easy, the learning, well, not
yeah,
comes easy, but the actual devotion to time to it comes easy. There's
yeah.
you're not under any illusions about that you have to regurgitate stuff on paper for exams. At least everything just flows.
It is like that, and I think for anybody who finds a path that resonates for them, and it's not just an intellectual resonance, it's just something that just feels so fluid and familiar. It falls into place because I had tried and tried for many years before that in sport, and the doors that I had to really force a knock on in astrology were just they didn't have to force, they just opened up, whereas in the other line it was like, oh my goodness, I'm really pushing a boulder up a hill like Sisyphus,
Yeah.
in the mythological characters. So you know it was been very fulfilling, and I'm very, very blessed and fortunate to being that this is not just it's not a business, it's a way of being, it's an entire ecosystem and a way of living. And we attempted to teach back in 1997 to 99, and it ended up being quite onerous, a lot of administration, and it was taking us away from, client work and that. And so we closed it down until 2011, when I was getting an awful lot of clients saying, you see it quite differently to what I'm reading. Is there any chance that you'd like to, teach? And so there was enough people who were interested, who were part of my mailing list. And so we just decided to open our doors in Maria Rowland's place. I think you might know Maria
Yeah. Yeah.
Rowland's.
Yeah.
She had a healing place down in Dunleary. So we just opened up just on a Friday morning. And it's really evolved since then. That's when the birth of the Blue Rose. So the business name is the Blue Rose. It's got a couple of angles to it. It's the working with clients on one-to-one basis, and then it's teaching. And our teaching style is a mixture of embodiment,
Yeah.
invocation, and meditation. The practicalities of actually looking at the living sky, discussion, and then obviously we're trying to impart our knowledge of sky lore and star lore, through just our experience of working with people pretty much intensely day in, day out. And I think yourselves, when you're working in something and living in something, it's very different to what it is in the abstract and the books and the theories.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really what drew a number of people to come as students or indeed as clients, is that it was more the being able to earth it in some way. And even having said that, it's still talking about the energetic waveforms of ourselves and how we interrelate with our wider holistic field, celestial field, let alone the earth field. and helping people understand what that rhythm is so that they can make more conscious and informed choice and decision about how they can self-actualize. Because I think this idea that, you know, the stars are to cause things, or you hear this a lot, particularly with a phenomenon called Mercury retrograde. Oh, Mercury retrograde, I lost my keys.
Yeah.
That comes from a very, very binary and linear way of operating in the world, which we've been obviously we're growing and evolving. And I mean, the two of you know from the work that you do that there's this quickening and has been a quickening in consciousness, and the rules and regulations that we all subscribe to at one stage don't necessarily fit the consciousness that's emerging at this time. So astrology, like anything else, is in a growth phase, and it's not because it seems more popular. My experience is it's no more popular now than it ever was. The only thing is that with the internet, you get to hear the interior content of people's minds, whereas before you had no idea. They keep
Yeah.
it quiet because, as you know yourself, Ireland in the early 90s, it wasn't particularly au fait to go down a slightly different route. It was a little,
No,
a
no, no.
taboo.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and
I
you know
remember.
yourselves, you all learn, we all learn a thick skin because,
Yeah.
a girl I was going out with prior to astrology couldn't get over how I could recognize if someone's Catholic or Protestant by their tone and the way that they actually, spoke, just because you grew up here and it's just part of the way,
Sure.
you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. 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 It was like going into a club and you'd know who was a nurse and who was a guard and who was a
Yeah,
teacher.
literally,
You know,
absolutely.
the energy of it. But like even, you mentioned the 90s. I went to the Clowns Hotel in 77 for an holistic day. There was a guy talking about Zen Buddhism. There was a couple, Stuart Farrer and his wife, talking
Yeah,
about white witchcraft.
yeah,
And it was like something out of Father Ted. There were people outside with placards, down with this sort of thing. And you ran the gauntlet to go to it, and even
yeah,
going to the Alchemist's Head to buy a book. One side had their advertisement on it, and the far
yeah,
side was blank, so the people didn't know that you'd gone in and bought a book in their shop.
yeah.
But like it's I suppose we have evolved.
We have. And I mean, look, even for myself, I didn't tell anybody during the 90s that I was an astrologer, which is ironic because I had a business and I was seeing clients and, but what are you doing? It's like, I'm a philosopher, counselor, coach. Because the thing is that the field of astrology seems to trigger a lot of people in a
Mm.
very intense way, and people have very strong opinions, except they have no idea what it is.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so I just didn't want that. I don't like it was just not my style to get into debate or conversation. So, and as I go, obviously it was maturity and you're getting older and really not giving a fig about what somebody projects onto you. It's like, well, it's your loss if you don't understand, or you think it's some sort of charlatan practice, as opposed to astrology is the mother of all the complementary fields.
yes, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Definitely, definitely. And it was such a privilege to meet you recently too in January in
Yeah.
France. Andrew, it was lovely, obviously, for our viewers. We were all attending a funeral of a wonderful person at Montsegur. And Andrew, would you like to talk a little bit about your love for Montsegur and the Qatar country? Because Michael and I are planning to go back there with the group in September. And we've just discovered that we're going to bump into you also there, which is
We
fantastic.
are,
Great minds collide.
coincidentally.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we must all
Uh,
catch up for dinner.
I think it's more my own intrigue comes from my pre-astrology days. Ironically, I was obviously heading down the astrology route before I actually even realized it, because I was always deeply interested in mysticism and spirituality. And um, when I was in university in environmental sciences, I was doing a thesis on believe it or not, the spatial distribution of the spirit of the Celtic Church in pre-Norman Ireland.
Wow,
And I came across a thing called ley lines,
wow,
My.
um,
yeah,
energy grids.
yeah,
And in just reading around it, being blown away and fascinated, came across a lot of the stuff around France. And I know my dad is instrumental around Montsegur for me, believe it or not, because there was a copy of the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail in the house. And
okay, yeah,
I'd had a spiritual experience when I was 17 because I was being a bold boy and stole my mum's car and I was getting late back. So I was rushing back and I got caught in a storm and I lost control of the car and aquaplaned, but I called out for help. and miraculously, the car on the Ballyogan Road just literally stops suddenly. There was a couple of people who witnessed it, said, I've never seen a car stop the way it did.
Wow.
And of course, I got out of the car, gave a little bit of thanks, managed to get home eventually, did a little bit of prayer in the way that I thought that I should do. Believe it or not, became a born again Christian for about 6 months. But
Well,
I
fair
was
play to
reading,
you.
I tell you this because I was reading the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, and I was saying to some of the Christians, you know, would it have mattered if he wasn't crucified? Moreover, what happens if he went actually with his family? He was married and his bloodline went over to France. Oh my goodness, it didn't go down very well at all.
I'd say you're excommunication. Yeah.
So between it and then the academic piece, I was aware of Montsegur and I finally got to go there. I think it was in 2006 or 2007.
Yeah.
And it was really more about the geometry and the kind of the energetic grid, and then discovered all the other bits and pieces about the
Yeah.
Cathars and the Albigensian Crusade. And my Karen, my wife, um, is very much into Yeshua and Mariam, and she's been very devoted to that path for a long, long time. Is actually one of the underpinnings of some of the work that we do, where we do a lot of spiritual work with people to help them understand the archetypal energies, but from a higher frequency.
Yeah.
And part of the embodiment and spiritual work that we do, Karen does a lot of ceremony and she does a lot of circle work. So she went down there with her best friend, Jean Ryan, who you both know, and they were doing an awful lot of just exploration and spiritual prayer and meditation and all the areas that supposedly the Grail, Mary, Lazarus, Martha, were. And then they ran a group and asked me to be the driver. So I was just
Yeah.
my sole occupation was the playlist to keep them entertained, going from place to place.
I
Because it was a
know.
ladies group, and you know
I know
yourself.
the feeling, Andrew, because we brought 13 people to Montsegur 3 years ago, and I couldn't get something that I could drive, so I needed to sort of coerce somebody into driving as well, which was an experience in itself. So the last time we went was a smaller group, but again, I was driving. But then I spent a lot of time over there. I was
Yeah,
over there the first time in '74.
yeah,
And now I didn't get to Montsegur until much later, but the
yeah,
Carcassonne and to the different things.
yeah.
And then the other thing, the other interesting thing, I suppose, is you had Lars Mule over there a couple of
I
years,
was literally just going to say our
and we really
Karen
enjoyed that.
Oh,
And his book, The O Manuscript, is
Yeah,
is amazing.
seminal.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, Karen is to blame for our relationship with Lars Muhl, because she came across as it presented herself to her on 4 occasions in one bookstore over about 20 minutes. So she bought it and read the first chapter, ran back in, bought a second copy for Jean, and the two of them just read it together. And
yeah,
then they just reached out to with a letter of gratitude, because a lot of things just fell into place, and a lot of the places that Lars was talking about, Karen had been without realizing that she'd been. And she just wrote a letter of gratitude. And ironically, the publishing company Watkins sent it on to Lars, and Lars reached out and got in contact with Karen, and he just said, "If you got 10 friends, I'll travel over to Ireland to, do a presentation." And so that was 2012 into 2013.
yeah,
And so Karen's never been with Lars in his formal groups there, but has been on a private basis with him. And I've been with him myself, just on a bit of a road trip around there, just
yeah, yeah.
doing some of the energetic stuff. So it's yeah, it's
Yeah, he's
really
fascinating. Yeah,
central.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as you know, he stayed with Giannis last year and did
Yeah,
a workshop there as well.
yeah,
Unfortunately, we weren't able to go at the time. But yeah, no,
yeah.
no, fascinating. It's fascinating, all these different people that are sort of
It is, but
co-
also like the
yeah,
Cathars were heavily steeped in astrological lore.
yeah,
As I say, most of our current modern society, whether we realize it or not, our calendar constructs, the origins of mathematics, music actually is all derived from cosmological influences. So
yeah,
it's obviously, as time went on, all of this started branching out into other fields, and because then they have their own linguistics and their own frameworks on it. Like those who practice feng shui already practicing again, as we say, this ley line stuff, which also is the energetic grids and waveforms and wavelengths, which we can then relate to cosmological phenomenon. Because as we know, most sacred sites, most churches, the original ones weren't. They were arranged in very specific locales, and most of them were trying to marry heaven and earth,
Yes.
and the upstairs and downstairs correspondence, as opposed to nowadays where a lot of modern buildings are just in this plane of
The
existence and not
linear. Yeah.
taking in
Yeah.
the vertical component.
Yeah.
So it's all linked and interwoven
Yeah.
with each other. A lot of people think astrology is rather arcane in that guise, but it's really just an attempt to put a language on energy and waveform and interaction. And it's just implicit with us. It just has fancy terms and language tones to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite
I
simple.
knowing I was going to talk to you tonight, I just had a brief look at your Facebook page. And one of the things that stood out for me was the day you heard the prince had died. I thought that was amazing, absolutely incredible. I'd heard a couple of things about it, but when you put it in on your, or you posted what you experienced, I thought it was really good. I haven't shared
Yeah.
it with Julie, so if you want to share it briefly.
Um, I came across his work back in 1984, actually. And what drew me to his work is that this is a guy who was singing deep spirituality, but was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because back in the day, you know what it was like back in the day? People who were into that type of spirituality usually had turtlenecks and, were folk singers and happy,
yeah,
smiley, shiny people, as opposed to, hey, this dude's singing about sex as well as actually consciousness. And a lot of his work was very, very, very deeply encoded in esoteric mysticism, which got deeper and deeper as he got older. Um, and writing albums about lucid dreaming around his own death, about a lot of the conspiratorial stuff that is not conspiratorial, but he was very switched on about what was happening in the
yeah,
world. So
Mm.
when I was walking, up from the office on the day he died, I was looking up at the sky and it's like this. It's really weird. It's like what the heck? There's no rainbow. It's purple there. And then I got the call to say, "Do you know that Prince has died?" And it's like, no. Um, and yeah, it's more the after his death, because a lot more was revealed because of he was quite tight-lipped and quite private. You started realizing how deep down
Mm.
in consciousness he was and how aware he was at a spiritual level. So, he's yeah, outside of his music, I believe a lot of people globally witness the same phenomenon, which is kind of suggested, as you know yourselves, when someone of a certain level of consciousness crosses through the veil, it creates another tone which becomes color and you can see it. Hence the rainbow bridges that we talk about,
yes,
when someone
yeah,
crosses the veil and that. But yeah, that's on my Substack account, because I kind of I've pulled back off Meta over the last couple of years because I
yeah.
got into a wee bit of hot bother during 2020 and 21
Like us
over a
all.
few
Yes, yeah, yeah,
over a few things that I was writing about, because I know we moved out of Dublin intentionally ahead of 2020. We
Mm.
decided we didn't want to be in a city for the redistribution of power. We thought it would be easier to be countryside based than the city based.
yeah,
And when you talk about these things, even if you're not condemnatory and you're just asking questions, it turns out that critical thinking and asking questions is not necessarily the flavor of the day.
No,
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 Because
no,
to be
definitely.
fair, and you probably notice it yourself in your own work, but when you go down the route that I've gone down, you start to realize very quickly what we've been told about the world and reality. There's another faction to it, and it's not necessarily all that is made out to be. Even something as simple, when my eldest was doing the Leaving Cert, which is the last exam before they leave school, for those who aren't Irish, um, she had to do Shakespeare, mandatorily do a Shakespeare play, and I just read it with her as an astrologer would read it, because
yeah,
Shakespeare's time was embedded in astrology. And she said, this makes so much more sense. I said, yeah, it does. However, you can't write that
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
you got to pass your exam.
yeah.
Because part of the, up until the 1600s, astrology was just a central way around the world that how everybody processed,
Oh, yeah,
reality.
absolutely. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
just with the movement towards a more reductive, linear way of being, it just doesn't fit that paradigm. So therefore, let's shame that paradigm. So anybody who's in complementary Reiki or energy work or acupuncture or even some of the yoga had a bad press up until relatively recently,
Oh, yeah.
just because it's different.
Yes,
You know.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know, I know. Well,
Yeah.
it's great to talk to someone different, Andrew, and we really appreciate your time. We're going to put your details in the description below because I'd say a lot of people have heard about you, but other people will be very curious after listening to your eloquence and they'll want to get in touch. And please give our regards to your lovely wife also. And we look forward to seeing you in person. It looks like it may be in France again.
It
Or
would be.
maybe before you
Maybe
see,
before it
yeah,
would
yeah,
be lovely
absolutely. Yeah.
because it's always a pleasure to connect with like-minded people. So, Gurmila Malgat and merci beaucoup.
Yeah.
And I
Thanks very much, Andrew.
pleasure.